They looked in the Latin numbering system, the Greek, and the Roman from Hebron. And in every case, vicarious filiae die came up to the number 666, which is quite fascinating. Well, I want to take you on a little tour, if I could. We're going to be looking at where the Pope stands in terms of these other religions, including Eastern religions, native religions, African witch doctors, Protestants, Jews, Muslims, Hindus. I'm going to give you pictorial proof that the Pope has been around the world endorsing, approving these religions. Later on, we're going to discover the reason why. Here, for example, is a photo of the Pope in Papua New Guinea in 1984. Notice the woman there. She has her breast bared. A semi-nude female is reading the epistle at the Pope's Mass. The Pope looks at the camera like as if to say, hey, don't take a picture of this, guys. Well, there it is. Here we see a tribal ceremony in the Pope's honor when the Pope visited the island of Fiji in the South Pacific. Here again at the top, and by the way, these are from the book Peter Lovest Thou Me by Abbé LaRue. Here is a picture of the Pope in Fiji at the top, and then below, an Indian chief from the United States invokes the Great Spirit or the Grand Spirit in front of Pope John Paul II. I think I know the name of the Great Spirit, and it's not God. Well, here we have the Pope being presented by Indians with a sweet herb and with a feather, a blessed feather. Here again we have a fetish or an idol being given to him in honor of the Pope's efforts toward peace. Here is the Pope at Assisi, Italy, on a most amazing meeting in 1986. You'll notice the various leaders, the Pope by Greek Orthodox Archbishop Methodius is also standing beside the Dalai Lama of Tibetan Buddhism, who calls himself a god on earth, and others. There's also the Archbishop of the Anglican Faith, the Church of England, Mr. Runcie. Now at Assisi, and this was, by the way, in Assisi, Italy, the Pope also allowed the various religions to have their own services and to use Catholic basilicas and churches for these services. Here are the prayers of the Muslims at Assisi. Here is the prayer of animist Africans at Assisi, tribal witch doctor people. Here's some Native Americans or Indians from the United States meeting on the at Assisi at the cathedral there, fixing to go in and have their little worship service. Here's the prayer of the Japanese Shintoists, who of course believe that their ancestors are gods. And below is a very interesting photo. We'll show you more on this, some moving pictures a little bit later on. This is the prayer of the disciples of the Dalai Lama as he installs a little statuette of the Buddha on the altar of the church, the Catholic Church, at Assisi in Italy. With the Pope's blessings, they had a Buddhist ritual right there on the altar. Here's some more pictures. There's the Dalai Lama approaching to place his little statue of Buddha on the Catholic altar. And there below is the altar all set up with the Dalai Lama giving his blessings to Lord Buddha. Here we have, of course, the Pope meeting with the Dalai Lama back in 1986. And the Dalai Lama, overcome with joy at meeting this great religious and spiritual leader, grabbed him and hugged him. It's all very touching. Now, you know, there are a lot of Catholics themselves that are not too happy about this state of affairs. And these Catholics have written me letters, they've sent me books, they've sent me videos, and they've said, Texe, Mars, please, even though you're a Protestant, even though you're not of the Catholic faith, please expose the fact that the Pope is not Catholic. Well, that was a shocking thing to get letters and pleas from Catholics, email and other things, begging me to expose their own so-called Holy Father. They've also sent me much material along these lines. Here's a book by a Catholic woman, Mary Ball Martinez, The Undermining of the Catholic Church. And she has some incredible things to say in here about Assisi. Here is the Catholic World Report, a magazine. They ask the question, will God hear? John Paul II invites world religious leaders to a day of prayer for peace in Assisi. But will God even hear these prayers? I think it's a pretty legitimate question. And this is put out by Catholics. So we're not bashing Catholics. I'm doing this at the request of Catholics. They want to know, is this man of the devil or of God? We're going to get to some answers. Here's a Catholic organization that has a picture of what they call their mother, Mary, sobbing out on the rocks in some wilderness. Why? In this magazine called A Voice Crying in the Wilderness, this Catholic group says that Mary is crying because of the Pope's apostasy and his false teachings. Here, another edition of this very same magazine. And Mother Mary is reported as telling the Catholics in some apparition, and I do not believe in those, but I'm just telling you what these Catholics have told me, especially the Catholic man that sent me this, that Mary in one apparition told the faithful, quote, Rome will lose the faith and become the seat of the Antichrist. Wow, pretty shocking, isn't it? Here's one of the best books I've seen on the subject, Peter, Lovest Thou Me, by a French clergyman. He's Catholic, the Abbé Daniel Leroux. He says, John Paul II, Pope of tradition or Pope of revolution? Then we have Father. I don't call him Father. The Bible says call no man Father, but that's what he calls himself. Two books by Father Johannes Doorman. All about, and he quotes the Pope extensively. It's a very theological treatise or book about Pope John Paul II's theological journey. Why is the Pope in apparent apostasy? He attempts to answer that question. Here is yet a second volume by the same author, again, Catholics. Let's look at what these Catholic ladies and gentlemen are calling the apostasy, even the satanic behavior of this Pope. Here, for example, from End Time Magazine is a picture of the Pope, and here again with a Buddhist monk. Here from Catholic World Report, February 1995, John Paul II meets with Buddhist monks in Bangkok. This is a very interesting photo. Here is Pope John Paul II meeting with the head Buddhist, the leader of the Buddhist sect in Bangkok, Thailand. Sitting to his right is the king of Thailand. And there, sitting even higher than the Pope, is the Buddhist leader. And by the way, I have a film clip of this in which the Pope actually bows down to the Buddhist. Somehow, my friends, I just can't see the Apostle Paul bowing down to the false gods. He said the idols they worship are devils. But that was the Apostle Paul. We now have Pope John Paul II. Here from the Christian newspaper, November 16, 1998, page 2, a little item. It says, Vatican seeks ties with Hindus. Don't have time to read that, but let me tell you, seeking ties is one thing. Taking the mark of Shiva, the great Brahmin god of the Hindus, is yet another thing. And in this shocking, absolutely shocking and disgusting photo, when he visited Bombay in India, John Paul II received what I believe is the mark of the beast in his forehead. That's right, they put some of that Hindu paste. You've probably seen it on many Hindu gurus, and the women's right at their forehead over the third eye, according to the New Age movement. And there is the Pope willingly accepting this mark of Shiva, the Hindu god, in his forehead. My friends, if you know about the mark of the beast, this is quite scary. By the way, this was reported in the London Times, 4/24/98. It was reported in the Liberator newspaper, March-June 98, page 4. Goes on and on. Now, this Pope has also ordered his cardinals. He didn't have to order them. They wanted to do it. Cardinal Bernardine, the late Cardinal Bernardine, now has been replaced by another cardinal, up in Chicago, assisted with his money and his time in what was called the parliament of the world's religions. It's held in